Biomed, Nexus. Daily updates, your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR Replimune won a positive advisory committee vote for its melanoma drug, despite FDA scientists calling its data package not interpretable, positioning it to bounce back from 2 earlier rejections. Capricor got a no the same week. The FDA's Adcomm process is genuinely unpredictable. AstraZeneca and BMS said they have no ongoing merger discussions, per Reuters, and AstraZeneca lost tens of billions in market value after the reports. The megadeal talk is effectively dead, exactly as the skeptics expected. Novo fell 6% on a Wegovy pill stumble despite beating on Q2 earnings, and its CEO admitted to a couple of setbacks. Amgen grew revenue 10%, and Gilead raised its guidance, closing a strong earnings season. Moderna launched an early trial of an Ebola mRNA vaccine, a step against the outbreak we have tracked since spring. Executive takeaway: the FDA's advisory committee process produced 2 opposite results in 1 week, and the contrast tells you how unpredictable the agency has become. Replimune, whose melanoma drug RP1 the FDA reviewers had savaged as not interpretable just days ago, won a positive advisory committee vote. That is a genuine surprise, and it positions the company to bounce back from 2 prior rejections. Meanwhile, Capricor, walking into its hearing on similar footing with negative briefing documents, got a no, and its CEO is now talking about suing the agency. Same week, same skeptical pre-hearing reviews, opposite outcomes. We have described the FDA's reset all year as uneven and improvisational, and this week is the sharpest illustration yet. There is no consistent philosophy you can plan around. One panel looks past the reviewers' doubts and votes yes, another sides with them and votes no, and the companies are left to absorb the whiplash. For Replimune, this is a real reprieve, and the drug now has a path. For anyone modeling FDA risk, the lesson is that the Adcomm outcome is close to a coin flip when the agency itself is divided and you cannot read the briefing documents as destiny. The merger talk, meanwhile, is dead. AstraZeneca and BMS told Reuters they have no ongoing discussions about a deal, and AstraZeneca lost tens of billions in market value after the initial report surfaced. We said Tuesday, and again yesterday, that the talks were more a barometer of consolidation pressure than a probable outcome, and that the odds of closing were low. That is how it played out. The interesting detail is the market reaction. AstraZeneca's shareholders punished the stock on the mere possibility of a giant, complex, distracting merger, which tells you investors preferred the focused company to the mega combination. That is a useful signal about how the market views these deals, and it may cool the appetite for the very largest transactions even as mid-cap consolidation continues. Tomorrow we pay off the obesity thread we set Monday. On today's evidence, Novo keeps stumbling, down 6% on a Wegovy pill stumble, even with an earnings beat, its CEO conceding setbacks, while Lilly keeps expanding. The gap is the story, and we will close the loop on it Friday. Read full analysis. Regulatory, Replimune got a surprise yes after the FDA trashed its data. RePL, Replimune won a positive advisory committee vote for its melanoma therapy RP1, despite persistent concerns from FDA scientists, positioning it to recover from 2 earlier rejections, according to Biopharma Dive. The vote is a genuine surprise given that agency reviewers had called the data package not interpretable only days earlier. The contrast with Capricor could not be sharper. Capricor got a negative vote the same week on similar footing, with its CEO now weighing legal action against the FDA. 2 previously rejected therapies, 2 skeptical pre-hearing reviews, 2 opposite outcomes. It captures the theme we have tracked all year. The FDA's revived use of Adcomms is producing inconsistent, hard-to-predict results, with no clear philosophy tying them together. For Replimune, the reprieve is real and the drug has a path forward. For the industry, the week is a lesson in how unpredictable the current agency has become. M&A, the AstraZeneca and BMS merger talk is dead. AZN, BMY, AstraZeneca and BMS have no ongoing discussions about a potential deal, Reuters reported, effectively ending the mega-merger speculation that surfaced this week, according to Fierce Pharma. Notably, AstraZeneca lost tens of billions in market value after the initial reports. We called the deal unlikely both Tuesday and Wednesday, framing the talks as a signal of consolidation pressure rather than a probable transaction, and that is how it resolved. The market reaction is the revealing part. AstraZeneca shareholders punished the stock on the mere prospect of a giant, distracting combination, which tells you investors preferred the focused company to the mega deal. That preference may temper appetite for the largest transactions, even as the mid-cap consolidation we covered yesterday with Supernus and Indivior continues. Scale is attractive, but not at any size, and the market just said so. Obesity and earnings Novo stumbled again while the rest of earnings came in strong. NVO, AMGN. Guild Novo. Nordisk fell 6% on a stumble with its Wegovy pill, even though it beat on Q2 earnings, according to Biospace, and its CEO admitted the company has had a couple of setbacks after the mixed CagriSema and Ziltivekimab data. It continues the rough stretch that has defined Novo's year against a surging Lilly. Elsewhere, the earnings news was good. Amgen grew revenue 10%, powered by Repatha, Evenity, and newer medicines outweighing biosimilar pressured products, and Gilead raised the lower end of its guidance. The Q2 season is closing as it ran, broadly strong, with the sector healthy and the weak spots concentrated in specific franchises and pipelines rather than across the board. Novo is the notable exception, a strong company having a genuinely hard year. Quick Hits, Moderna, launched an early trial of an Ebola mRNA vaccine, a concrete step against the Bundibugyo outbreak we have tracked since the WHO declared an emergency in the spring. It will not help the current outbreak, but it matters for the next one. Pathos AI signed a $2.09b licensing deal with China's Jiangsu Alphamab for a TROP2 and HER3 bispecific ADC, another large China licensing pact landing, even amid the political scrutiny, and an AI plus China plus ADC story in one. The IPO window is wide open. Apnimed raised 192 liters above its target, and 5 more drug makers, including Braveheart Bio and Latigo, set terms and could price this week, pushing 2026 toward its strongest IPO year since 2021. Lilly and Resilience are investing $750 million to create 400 jobs making GLP-1 injectables, adding obesity manufacturing capacity as tariffs push production onshore. Coming up this week, Q2 earnings wrap. Imminent Moderna mRNA flu, FDA decision. August 2026, Replimune RP1 FDA response, now after a positive Adcomm. August 22, Capricor Duramyocel PDUFA, after a negative Adcomm H2, 2026 Arrowhead, ARO INB and ARO ALK7 obesity, readouts read, full analysis Biomed Nexus Pro, institutional intelligence brief, Replimune, Capricor and how to model FDA risk. Now, the split decision this week, Replimune winning its Adcomm while Capricor lost, both after skeptical FDA reviews, is the clearest case study yet in how unpredictable the current agency has become, and it has practical implications for how to assess regulatory risk. The facts. Both companies had drugs the FDA previously rejected, both resubmitted. Both drew critical pre-hearing reviews from agency scientists, with Replimune's data called not interpretable and Capricor's efficacy evidence questioned. Both faced surprise advisory committees that industry leaders were puzzled to see called at all. And then the panel split, Replimune yes, Capricor no. Why this matters for risk modeling. The conventional approach treats negative FDA briefing documents as a strong predictor of a bad outcome, and often they are. But this week shows that when the agency itself is internally divided and the science is genuinely contested, the Adcomm becomes close to a coin flip. and the briefing documents are not destiny. The panel can look past the reviewer's concerns, weigh the unmet need and the totality of the data differently, and vote yes despite a hostile review. That injects real variance into outcomes that the market often prices as more certain than they are. The practical takeaways. First, do not over-anchor on briefing documents. They matter, but in contested cases they predict less than their tone suggests. Second, the variance cuts both ways, which means negative pre-hearing reviews can create asymmetric opportunities when the market overprices the downside, as it arguably did with Replimune before the vote. Third, until the FDA has permanent leadership with a consistent philosophy, this unpredictability is structural, and every rare disease and contested approval should carry a wider range of outcomes in your model than it would have a year ago. The read. The agency's improvisational posture is the operating environment, and it creates both risk and opportunity. Replimune now has a path to approval. It looked unlikely to have a week ago, and its August decision is the next milestone. Capricor faces a steep climb into its August 22nd date and a public fight with its regulator. Both outcomes flowed from the same unpredictable process, and pricing that unpredictability correctly, neither dismissing bad reviews nor treating them as fatal, is the edge in a market that tends to overreact to each signal. The merger death and mega-deal appetite. The AstraZeneca and BMS talks ending, and the market punishing AstraZeneca for them is worth analyzing for what it says about appetite for the very largest deals. What happened? Reports of a potential combination surfaced, and rather than cheering the prospect of a 400B champion, AstraZeneca's shareholders sold, wiping tens of billions off its value. Then both companies told Reuters there are no ongoing discussions. The talks, whatever their real substance, are over, and the market's verdict on the idea was clearly negative. Why shareholders balked? A mega merger of this size carries enormous execution risk, years of integration distraction, antitrust uncertainty, pipeline disruption, and the well-documented tendency of giant combinations to destroy value. AstraZeneca has been executing well as a focused company with a clear growth strategy, and its shareholders evidently preferred that to the gamble of absorbing BMS and its patent challenges. The market was saying it likes AstraZeneca as it is and does not want it distracted by a transformational deal of dubious value. The broader implication: this is an important data point about the ceiling on consolidation. The M&A wave has been powerful, but this suggests there is a size beyond which the market resists, where a deal is so large and complex that investors see more risk than reward. Mid-cap consolidation, like Supernus and Indivior, gets rewarded because the logic is clean and the integration manageable. Mega mergers at the very top face a skeptical market that remembers how many have failed. Our read is that the consolidation wave continues vigorously in the small and mid-cap tiers and in bolt-on acquisitions by the giants, but that true mega mergers remain hard to pull off, not just because of antitrust, but because shareholders may not want them. The pressure to get bigger is real, but the market just set a limit on how big, and that limit will shape which deals actually happen. What Novo needs to turn it around. Novo falling 6% on a Wegovy pill stumble despite an earnings beat, with its CEO conceding setbacks, crystallizes a genuinely difficult year, and it is worth assessing what would actually reverse the trajectory. The problem: Novo created the GLP-1 category with semaglutide, but it has been losing the narrative to Lilly for months. Lilly's tirzepatide and retatrutide show better weight loss, its oral Foundayo is in the market, and it keeps setting concrete filing timelines. Novo, meanwhile, has absorbed the CagriSema shareholder suit, the ziltivekimab cardiovascular failure, the advertising fight it initiated against Lilly, and now a stumble with its Wegovy pill. The CEO admitting to a couple of setbacks is an unusual public concession that reflects real pressure. what it needs. 3 things would help. First, a clean pipeline win. Ideally, CagriSema delivering unambiguously strong data that re-establishes Novo at the frontier of efficacy, since competing on advertising and litigation is not where a leader wins. Second, a successful oral obesity execution, because the oral market is the next battleground and stumbles, their seed ground Novo cannot afford to lose. Third, a clearer strategic narrative, since right now, Novo looks reactive, responding to Lilly rather than setting its own agenda. The read. Novo remains a fundamentally strong company with a deep franchise, real science, and enormous obesity revenue. So this is a rough patch, not a collapse, but rough patches become trajectories if they are not arrested, and Novo has now strung together enough setbacks that the market is treating each new one as confirmation rather than noise. The company needs to change the story with data, not messaging, and it needs to do it before the perception of Novo as the perennial number 2 hardens into consensus. The contrast with Lilly, which keeps executing cleanly, makes every Novo stumble land harder. For investors, Novo is a strong business with a damaged narrative, and the question is whether management can produce the win that resets it. Watch CagriSema and the oral obesity execution, because those are where the turnaround, if it comes, will start. Coming catalysts. Q2 earnings wrap this week. Moderna's flu decision is imminent. Capricor's PDUFA is August 22. The full catalyst calendar returns tomorrow. Replimune won a surprise yes, while Capricor got a no, and the FDA's Adcomm process has never looked more like a coin flip. The AstraZeneca and BMS merger talk is dead, and the market cheered, and Novo stumbled again. Tomorrow we close the loop on the obesity race. What are you watching? Reply to this email. Visit the Pro Hub Read. Full article sponsorship slots for 2026 are limited. See packages and pricing. New Biomed Nexus signals, weekly sales intelligence for life sciences BD teams. Learn more